going on, Only Playbook fans? We are back for another episode. Week 1 is in the books. My God, sloppy monsoon rain, like just disgusting is the best way I can categorize it, at least for my teams and my fantasy teams and my players. It just seemed like it was disgusting all across the board. So I don't know if you guys felt any different, but we have so much to talk about. I'm Sweetcart. I got Shishot and Shovit. How are you guys feeling post week 1?
You know, I'll tell you how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like I'm going through some breakups right now. You know, guys that I drafted, I have to look at the waivers and let them go. It's a really sad day for me. I'm like, I believed in them and I don't think they will succeed. So I'm moving on. So I'm recovering.
Wow. Well, players gonna play, and I'm just dropping them on like flies, and I have no remorse for dropping them. I'm dropping them so bad that I'm already starting to use my tricky tricks up my sleeve. This week, I had the first waiver pick because I drafted 9th, and 3 other people already picked up stuff like during the midweek. So I could have had picked up Puka, right? I really wanted Puka, but what I told on the group was like, oh, looks like Puka's coming straight to my hands. It's easy, great grab. You guys fucked up using your waiver wire. So nobody put in a waiver wire pick for Puka, and I just scooped him up at 3:00.
Wow. That's some reverse psychology, man. Damn.
Yeah.
Man, well done.
Coming in hot, baby. Coming in hot.
Yeah, that's 3:00 pit waiver, not waiver, but free agency pickups.
Oh,
they
dude,
just hit
it's
different.
next. They really do.
Go ahead.
It hits different. You're absolutely right. But I'm still like, I was in a situation where there were more players to pick up than I knew how to maneuver my bench. So it was like I was up. I just told you guys a story. I was awake. So I was doing podcast stuff. And so I had everything. I had like the pick of the litter. There were waiver claims in there, but there were guys that still weren't that I wanted. And I just did not have the ability to draw people. Like I was like, I don't know how to, like, I told you guys, I'm like, to make spots on my roster, I dropped Deontay Johnson, who again, he's hurt, but that's typically a guy that's rostered in most fantasy leagues. And then who did I say I dropped in my in this? Oh, I did drop Jameson Williams. Obviously I dropped Aaron Rodgers, which paid off, sorry, Rodgers, but yeah, I mean, it's been tough. And so Shishot, I was telling you, and in the fantasy world, I was getting some slack from my other league saying like, oh, this is some, stupid trick or whatever, but I just dropped my kicker because I need 6 bench spots to figure out who I'm going to play, who I'm not going to play. And I figure I'm just going to pick up my kicker on Sunday, like before game time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And this is when you got to look at those transactions, see who people drop, and then get back on the waivers that are going to be there for Friday and pick those guys up that people can't have on their team because you're in a 5-man bench or 4-man, whatever. And so it's a time to capitalize.
Yeah, roster construction is important. And early in the season, it's just kind of like, how is your team currently constructed, right? Like if you have a great team and you have nobody to drop, it doesn't matter that you have the number 1 waiver claim. You can't drop anybody, right? So you're just banking. And then again, like anybody that has 9, 10, 8 waiver claim, if they've already had 2 players go down with injury, they don't care about, maintaining that spot. So they're going to throw in as many claims as possible. And that's kind of what my situation was in both leagues. I just threw in a waiver claim for pretty much everybody that I wanted to get. But again, so much to talk about fantasy football related. We want to dive into every single game, but we want to be as quick as we can. One big key fantasy football takeaway for each of us for each football game. So if you guys don't have anything else, let's get through the rundown. Kicking it off, Thursday Night Football, guys, Lions and Chiefs. Lions come away victorious 21-20 on the road. They cover the 4-point spread under 53 cashes. First game of the season. Shishot, kick us off. What was the biggest takeaway for you from this football game?
I mean, biggest takeaway is just the ability of the receivers to not catch any balls on the Chiefs end, right? Because this game would have been a whole different story if they caught like 2 of those passes. So for me, some people will look at Sky Moore as an easy drop and make room for like a Tank, Dell or anybody else that's out there. But you got to remember, man, this man is the number 1 targeted or number 1 route run receiver and the number 1 snapped receiver with the most snaps on a Patrick Mahomes-led team without his true number 1 target, which we don't know when he's going to be back. He may be back this week, but dude, he's an old man. That knee could keep bothering him all throughout the year. We don't know. So this is not a player that if you have space in certain leagues, like one of my leagues, I have 6 roster spots. One of my leagues, I have 4 roster spots. So 4 roster spot league, don't got no room. 6 roster spot league, got room. I'm going to hold on to Sky Moore. And this is like a weird recommendation a lot of people don't like because the majority of the people will just go on the sleeper app or whatever and look at the trending people and pick up the people at the top. But that's not what this is about. You always have to do something that's different than what the masses are doing, because that is going to be the reason you stand out. And adding Sky Moore is highly recommended on my end, just because the potential of that deep touchdown, the potential of that end around is just too high. Don't use that game as your solo reason for not having this man on your team. I understand if he let you down, you can drop him. Those personal reasons are different. But as somebody that I had no dog in the fight, I picked him up, kept him at him. You know, there is no limit. There's no ceiling for a player like Sky Moore. So it's just entertaining to keep on the bench to see what may happen.
Shovit, what stood out to you the most this game?
Yeah, the biggest thing, the fantasy player to go and pick up is Sam Laporta. I think he saw a lot of there's a lot of usage, 58 snaps, which was third, 58 snaps, 5 targets, which was third, second to Josh Reynolds and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that he has the opportunity to be second in targets with Jameson Williams out. So if you need a tight end filler, Sam Laporta is a good add.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, I think we came into this season personally expecting Laporta, in my opinion, to fill in for Hockenson, because the offense didn't change at all, right? So if they're getting rid of that tight end, they can't reconstruct the offense completely to not use the tight end anymore, especially when Williams keeps getting hurt, especially because is DJ Chark still on their roster and hurt, or did he go somewhere else?
The Carolina Panthers.
Okay, so yeah, so outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown right now, like Josh Reynolds, like that's who you're banking is going to basically take touches away from Laporta. And with how they use the tight end, because they have 2 running backs that they love to run the football with, Laporta is going to see the field. So I'm with you. Absolutely. Personally, I disagree on Sky Moore. I just think I was really high on Sky Moore coming out of college, and with all the opportunity he got last year and did nothing with, I was really disappointing. But like you, it's all just about upside. And if you have a bench spot, he's a guy that you could continue to wait on. For me, it's pretty obvious who the guy is. You guys just kind of left me a layup. Jahmyr Gibbs, guys, 9 total touches this game. So discouraging for fantasy owners when you draft him as your RB1, possibly you draft him as a fantasy league winner, etc. But 9 touches, the man had 7 fantasy points and half-point PPR, right? We talked about before the game, Dan Campbell said he's not going to get a full workload. Immediately after, he promised that he's going to increase his workload. So he's already trending in the right direction. But let's talk about the numbers. 4.5 yards after contact in just 9 touches, right? So for perspective, last year's league leader, Tony Pollard, averaged 3.7. So he would nearly break that by a full yard if you extrapolate that over the season. And the other thing, I think the craziest stat, 9 touches, the dude forced 6 missed tackles on 9 touches, right? So let's just extrapolate that over a game and a season. I mean, the dude probably could run for 2,000 yards, right? That's not realistic. But what is realistic is we talk about the numbers. Let's talk about the eye testers. Every time he touched the ball, did that man not just look absolutely electric? If he wasn't so fast that, he juked himself, he probably would have scored a touchdown. So to me, Jahmyr Gibbs' stock is on the rise. I don't think that takes away from Montgomery. It's the same situation where I think both running backs can be productive. You can probably start both, but the upside of Gibbs and what he flashes on the football field, I think it all adds up. And I finally see why the Lions drafted him 12th, and I'm completely bought in there.
Agreed. Last thing to add, there's a world where you can draft Bijan Robinson first round. You can draft Gibbs in the second round, and you can have Breece Hall in the third round. Imagine those people that have that roster construct right now, bro. I am just drooling thinking about that. And then you could even forget it. The world is just crazy right now. People that have that roster, please send us a snap, like a screenshot or something. If you hear this, if you are one of those lucky people, like that's simply amazing. I want to see how you constructed the rest of your roster.
Yeah, I mean that would be extremely sexually good. I don't know what the right word is, but if you went like hero RB where you went just all RBs, yeah, that's Heroes. I mean, especially with Breece Hall, right? Breece Hall with the uncertainty, I personally was bearish just because I like Dalvin Cook got signed. He's coming off an injury, and 2 snaps in, he's got 109 rushing yards. So, I mean, he would have probably had more rushing yards than my entire roster combined. So that was Thursday Night Football. Lions, Chiefs, big win for the Lions. First game on the board on Sunday. The Panthers were traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Falcons win this game 24-10 with Desmond Ridder at the helm. Cover the 3.5-point spread, under 40.5 cashes. Shovit, you take it off here. What was the biggest takeaway for you for fantasy?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway, we just talked about Bijan Robinson. How about Tyler Algier? You know, you got 2 touchdowns. I think that this is a guy that if you go out and you get, I think he's a great trade candidate, right? You go out and you sell high, you know, let Algier have his touchdowns and all the stuff at the beginning of the season, gets people excited. Someone's going to be desperate. They need, you know, there is a world where you could have both of these running backs be starters on your teams, RB1, RB2. And so, you know, go out and trade Algier, see if you can get some a receiver that can, or whatever you need on your team to kind of fill that place. But I think that Algier had a great day. Robinson had a great day. At some point, it's going to be Robinson, and take advantage of that.
Solid points, but you guys are living in this world of make running backs great again, and I am not about that life. Especially if my running back could potentially get vultured by any person. I just hate that shit. It's one of my worst nightmares of all of fantasy football. So I just try to strictly, even if I have to reach, I'll go for a lower ranked wide receiver that has full control over the team's back position. But I get it. It's just some of these players are so electric that you just have to have them on your team. So I agree with everything there. I would not keep Algier on my team. He's getting shipped. If I pick him up, he's out of here. So the next thing is, you know, that's one side of the field where things looked pretty on point from a rushing standpoint, but their passing game, I'm going audible mode here. I was going to talk about the Panthers, but there's really not much going on there. So I'm going to stick with the Falcons, but we're going to stick with the passing side. This is going to be a nightmare. Get ready for it. This is not what I saw this coming a mile away. Drake London always gave me the icks every time just he comes up. He may do something later on in the year, but there are too many players. There's too much volume. You could even trade Drake London for like a Jahan, what's his name? Jahan Dotson. You could trade for one of those with some stuff added to it. But I'm losing my stock in the Falcons passing game. I'm getting rid of all of it. You can still make a case for Pitts here and there, and you could get rid of him for like a Laporta and something else, like a AJ Dillon and a Laporta for a Pitts. Maybe somebody will do that. Maybe not right now, but they would have. So just warning you right here, right now, Falcons passing game is going to be so uneven because how sold they are to this running game. The running backs are going to dominate this team by far. So if you want to take the flyer on Drake London, be my guest. But if you are looking for consistency in this passing offense, God bless your soul. You are in for a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, I mean, what were we expecting here? We went into the season pretty much understanding this. Drake London is dropped in our league. Drake London is dropped in my other league. After 1 week, a guy who was getting drafted in the 5th, 6th round, people were praising as a wide receiver 1. Let's not get it twisted that his talent is great, but again, like just simplistically thinking, the person running this offense will die by running the football. Arthur Smith, right? So we're not making running backs great again. Arthur Smith refuses to acknowledge the fact that skill positions outside of the running back exist, right? Desmond Ridder had 24 passing yards on like first 8 completions, went for 3 yards an attempt, right? So they don't care. They won this football game by 2 touchdowns, running it down your throat. Cordero Patterson was inactive. Bijan Robinson didn't even get a full workload, and they still dominated. Drake London had 1 target, I believe, and they still dominated. Drake London said he was happy after the game. Bullshit. You're not happy when you're not touching the football, but sure, I guess a win is a win. But again, this was not something that was not predictable. Like Desmond Ridder has not proved that he can throw the football. They're in an offense that wants to run the football. They ran it successfully with 3 running backs last year and drafted a running back with their first pick. And one of the guys that ran it successfully was inactive this week, who also catches passes out of the backfield. Not to mention over 50% of Desmond Ridder's passes went to Bijan or Algier. So no, none of the pass catchers are going to be good. Why would you put yourself through that like mental hurdle? There may be weeks when Pitts catches a touchdown. There are probably weeks where London goes 5 for 70 in a score, but are you going to try to guess and predict when that's going to be? No, it's stupid for you to do so. There's a reason after 1 week in both of my leagues, Drake London has been dropped. I mean, like the offense just does not make sense. I don't know what the balloons are about there. Shove it. Was that you? That was sick.
I didn't do that.
But yeah, so I agree with you. Lastly, I mean, I want to talk about the Panthers too, but there's not much to talk about. Miles Sanders, I think his stock drops a little bit. Just the usage is not great. He's hobbled a little bit. That offense, who's going to catch the ball? Are they going to move the ball enough? Is Miles Sanders even going to get any work on third down? I don't know. But what I really want to talk about is Bijan, because he's the sexy toy. Obviously, we talked about it. Bijan had the touchdown. The touchdown was electric. Like, to me, him and Gibbs went onto the field, and I immediately, within 3 touches of them playing football, I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, those 2 guys could be the top 5 best running backs in the NFL by the end of the season. They just have that talent. So to me, Bijan, 6 catches in his first game, a receiving touchdown in his first game, didn't even get, half of the carries out of the backfield. So sky's the limit for this guy. Again, they are going to run the football. I think you can start Algier. I think you can start Bijan in RB1, Algier, maybe even an RB2, but a pretty comfortable flex with how heavily they run the football. I am all in. Like, I would start Bijan and Algier before I started Pitts, before I started London. Like, I would start both of them. So yeah, Drake London and Pitts. Sorry guys, you guys are, I wouldn't be surprised if after 3 weeks, Kyle Pitts is also a free agent in most leagues.
Hold up. One guy we didn't talk about, Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst got the 1 touchdown pass that Bryce Young
threw away. That was Bryce Young's first career touchdown
pass. Someone's got to catch it. Someone's got to catch passes.
7 targets. I think Hayden Hurst deserves a consideration on your team if you're dealing with some tight end issues and you're like, crap, I don't have
Which you are, because everybody dealt with tight end issues in week 1. So absolutely. Next game on the board, we have the Bengals and the Browns. Who saw this coming? Browns win 24-3 at home. It was a pick 'em, so they absolutely covered that. Under 46.5 was the over under. The under hits a lot. Show it. Let's start with you. Browns Bengals. What did you see?
Man, it was a sloppy game. This is rain. Burrow can throw the ball. Deshaun Watson can throw the ball. Nobody in that field was doing well besides a guy named Nick Chubb. And I think that one thing to take away is just don't overreact. Obviously you have your Chase, you have your Higgins, maybe even Mixon, Burrow. You guys are just gonna be fine. Even I think Deshaun Watson, although it wasn't great, he showed his ability to evade the pocket, run the ball, get some extra yardage, and threw some really good, accurate throws at times. And with that complement of Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson, I think they're going to be fine. I think Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, also going to be fine on that team. I wouldn't react if you have any of those guys that I just mentioned.
Yeah, I will definitely not react with Deshaun Watson. He's going to be a superstar. The other side of the spectrum, the Bengals that played so bad, T. Higgins got 0 points. Jamar Chase had 6 and some change. Don't worry about any of that stuff. If you can get these players, get them on your team now, because they are not going to be cheaper than this for the rest of the season. I will guarantee you. They just paid the most money you could pay any human being in any sport, basically, to Joe Burrow, and outside of soccer. And it just means they're going to be using them. They're going to rely on that arm to do a lot of their damage. Joe Mixon's getting old. They're going to use him a lot too, but it's coming from the passing game. The passing game is the bread and butter. That's why they went so far into the playoffs this past couple of years. You got to buy low. This is the best time to buy low. Get T. Higgins on your team. If you can put T. Higgins as a wide receiver 3 on your team, God, dude, I don't know who's going to stop you at some point when T. Higgins drops 28 points some of these weeks and 17 points some of these weeks. It's just, this is the time. This is how you create championship rosters. Week 1 is the most important week for waiver wire, because this is when you start seeing what the true nature of the team is. We just understood what the Falcons' game plan is. We just understood even the Texans have a good pass defense. Like, we get a lot of these information this quick, and people are going to be like, it's too soon. It's too soon to see certain usage of certain players, but the scheme they're running, how the players want to address certain situations, how many touches certain players get. You got to listen to these conversations. Oh, this player is going to get limited this week, which means towards the end of the season, they're planning on not keeping him limited, right? So you got to go after those players. So all that being said, buy low on every single Bengals player you can think of. Even Irv Smith in this rainy ass game got hella targets. I think 4 or 5 targets, caught a couple of them. It's only going to get better for the Bengals, and I would not be worried at all. Just buy low on all of them.
Yeah, Hayden Hurst was their tight end last year, and he was very productive. So you would expect much of the same for Irv Smith. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on harping on the same thing. I agree. I mean, throw everything out the window from this game. I mean, people were trying to, trade T. Higgins. Absolutely. I will take T. Higgins. 0 points week 1. Yeah. How much lower are you going to buy him? I was offering T. Higgins, and I was trying to get T. Higgins and Kelsey from a guy because Kelsey didn't play. And I was offering Puka, my tight end Darren Waller, and then I threw in Ramondre Stevenson as a formidable running back. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I'm just throwing feelers out there for all these players that people are immediately disgusted by after week 1. But that is exactly that. if you didn't watch this football game, you would think the Bengals suck. You would think the Browns are good this year, and you would want to trade. You would think Joe Burrow was a bust, T. Higgins was a bust, Jamar Chase was a bust. But it was raining the entire football game. Joe Burrow couldn't hold on to the football, and Deshaun Watson couldn't hold on to the football. So I am a little bit more concerned than you guys are with Deshaun Watson, even though I'm bullish on him. Like, yes, the rain impacted some of his throws, but there were also throws that did still like remind me of what he was doing last year. So I'm really hoping more rain, less last year Deshaun Watson, but we will see. But if there's one thing that is without a question, it is Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is inevitable. So that is kind of my takeaway from that football game. Let's take it over to Indianapolis, where Anthony Richardson made his first start against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars win this game 31-21 on the road, cover the 3.5 point spread, over 45.5 cashes. Shashot, Calvin Ridley comes back and plays football after 2 years, or after a year removed. Is he your takeaway, or are you going to steer us somewhere different?
I'm going to steer somewhere different because I mentioned that like the first podcast of this year, I was like, I'm all in on Calvin Ridley. Nothing really needs to be said. If you've been following this podcast since the origin of this podcast, you know how much I love Calvin Ridley. I had zero doubt about all that happening. But I do want to focus somewhere where a lot of people may not be focused and someone may be using him as a trade bait. It's time to buy low on Pittman. I'm just all here to make your team better by buying low, making you just save your wallet, your fantasy fab points. It's time to get Michael Pittman on your team. Why? Well, we have seen them run a similar style offense to the Falcons, but we are seeing heavy target. The ball is getting targeted in the direction of Michael Pittman, whether it's to Michael Pittman or Michael Pittman's the first read and then the next read gets the ball, or they're looking at a screen pass and it gets messed up and the next pass is directly look for Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman is not like Drake London here where just ignored 0 catches. He's getting targeted. We're watching him getting targeted in a run-first offense. Those receivers are typically going to do well because in a run-first offense with a run-first, or not a run-first quarterback, but basically a run-first quarterback, you're going to see heavily wide receiver one targeted numbers. Whether they do good or not, it's up to the receiver to decide, but the targets will be there. And we know Michael Pittman is good enough to get the targets. That he got 19.7 fantasy points in a team where we did not think that was possible. But you know what? Look at the numbers, 11 targets, 8 receptions. In a bad team, you can get 11 targets with bad receivers. They might catch 4 of those, but 11 targets, 8 receptions is not something you need to overlook. 97 yards and a touchdown. And you know what? He's going to get his touchdowns this year. They got to score in the air somehow. And if you're only looking at Michael Pittman, or Michael Pittman's your first or second read, he's going to flourish. I know it's not a sexy pick. That's why he's on a lot of people's waiver wires or trade blocks already. But I am one of those people that are like, look at the numbers. The numbers will lead you to the promised land.
Awesome. Yeah. I had Michael Pittman last year. I thought he was solid. And I think this year with the targets, man, he's gonna be good too. Sorry. So for me, I am a Deion Jackson owner, and I am very, very sad, like just disappointed in myself for believing that he could be something. Given all of the stats from last year, I should have known better, but I didn't have any other choice. Deion Jackson's got to go. Zach Moss is coming in. If you have him on your team, I'm still waiting. I don't know what I'm waiting for, but I'm waiting. I might pick him up after this waivers are done Friday. He might be gone from my team, but Deion Jackson's got to go off your team.
Yeah, Zach Moss was injured. He is supposed to be their RB1. Deion Jackson, he got bruised up, right? He got banged up in the first game as well. So I believe he has an injury designation as well. I know Evan Hall got hurt, but I think Deion Jackson also came away with some sort of injury designation. So they're all kind of hobbled a little bit, but I think the intention is Zach Moss is coming in to be the starter. He was very, very annoying even last year where, we know what Zach Moss is, but for whatever reason, they continue to use him. But for me, the biggest takeaway here, let's talk about the Jaguars. Let's talk about what I saw from Trevor Lawrence. Solid fantasy day. I think he had over 17 points. So middle of the pack in a week where quarterbacks didn't perform well. So no reason to, dig too deep into the numbers themselves. But what I really liked about him was I really, really, really liked that he made a lot of big time throws. There were throws to Calvin Ridley along the sidelines. And that touchdown to Zay Jones where he just touched it over the defender. Those were like elite level throws. And the other thing was I did think the Colts pressure was getting to him very quickly. And I thought he was maneuvering the pocket so much more comfortable than like what we're used to seeing. I think that was the biggest difference is he just looks very, very comfortable. He did have an interception, but again, I'm sure having a stud number one receiver in Calvin Ridley on the field probably helps a lot with Lawrence. So I think the future is bright there. The offense is clicking. I mean, ETN looked explosive. That touchdown run that he had, I think, that pushes down the Tank Bigsby crew a little bit, because Tank Bigsby did have a drop that led to an interception. So not the best outing for the rookie. ETN still kind of holds the cards there. So I really, really was impressed on their offense. But Anthony Richardson, Shovit, you did not start him, but I think all of us are probably pretty encouraged. His first game, good fantasy output, rushing the football. Clearly, it's apparent that they're going to do quarterback sneaks. The red zone is going to feature him as a runner. And Shishot hitting on Michael Pittman, I'm very, very impressed with how much better of a passer he looked his first game in the NFL against a pretty good Jacksonville team than what I was accustomed to seeing. Like a lot of the accuracy issues, some of his slant throws were so perfectly zipped in there. So I was very impressed with that. Again, a lot to like from the Jaguars, and Richardson showing a ton of promise as a rookie. Taking it to a not so happy game, the Buccaneers and the Vikings played in Minnesota. The Bucs come away victorious. Baker and gang 20-17, cover the 4-point dog spread under 45 cashes. Shishot, the Vikings, Bucs. What was your biggest takeaway?
I'm just numb to these losses, so I'm not going to focus too much on what they should do better, what they should, change. The defense improved, but it is what it is. They'll always find a way to just struggle somewhere. And we'll find out tomorrow how much improvement they made. But my focus is on Mad Dog Madison. You guys know how much I like this guy. Even when Dalvin Cook was on the team, you see when he got the opportunity, he was trying to hurdle people. He just made the most out of his opportunities. Sometimes, his average yards per carry wasn't so high, but you could see the tenacity. Like it's one of those players that you just get lower in the draft and you'll end up getting rewarded with the ADP because they're going to perform better. And it's looking like there really isn't a true backup here. And this was a game where the Vikings were kind of just struggling and this and that, but there will be games where the Vikings offense just takes control of the game and we're going to be running the game a lot. And it looks like he's the number one guy here, with the backups being like Ty Chandler with little to no experience and just a bunch of bullshit, right? So it's just a bunch of bullshit, and they haven't really made it a point to bring like a veteran presence. Myles Gaskin keeps getting dropped and put on the practice squad. So I think as of now, if you drafted Madison, you got him at great value, and he's probably your RB2. If he's your RB3, you're going to have a great year. So just focus on that. If you're worried about, is he the real deal? Is he the real? He may not be the real deal, but in a bad game where he only got 11 attempts for 34 yards, he gave you over 10 points. So this is one of the bad days Madison's going to have. So just keep that in mind and just add him to your lineup every chance you get.
Yeah, one quick thing I want to add on Madison. Yeah, I mean, out of everybody that was out of their backfield, he probably played the best. I don't know why. This could be just like a midweek practice thing where maybe Madison gets rest or they need an extra running back. But immediately after the game, they brought Gaskin back up to the active roster, to the 53-man. I don't know if Chandler's dinged up. I don't know if there's something. I don't know if just in the practice, like during the week, they just have an extra running back on the roster. He could just be scratched and not part of the roster when the game time. But I just thought that was something to note with Madison. Shovit, what did you see?
I saw a lot of Godwin potential, actually. So he led the team in snaps, 58 snaps, 6 targets. And here's my thing about Godwin, right? I am thinking that I was wrong about the Buccaneers. I think Baker Mayfield may actually be okay enough for that offense. And if that offense flourishes and does good this year, then Godwin could potentially be a guy that is worth starting from here on out. So I think that Godwin has sort of like a buy low target. If you're, if someone has him on team, they're not, they don't think much about the Buccaneers. I think that actually he might be a guy that is a solid play moving forward. But there's more. You still have to see more from the Buccaneers. You're not really sure on that, but something I'm looking into in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the flip side with the whole Evans thing, right? I mean, we had that huge Evans conversation. Evans catches a touchdown first week. He probably would have had 2 if he didn't drop that slant. So, I mean, Mike Evans was primed for a top 5 wide receiver finish in week 1 if he didn't make that drop, in very limited targets, limited in like would have been 6 total catches, in an offense that could not efficiently run the football at all with Rachaad White. And, in a game where they were kind of in a reverse game script for the most part. I mean, they didn't necessarily need to be. It wasn't like they were down by a ton, but it did seem like they would shy away from the run every time Rachaad White would only get like 2 yards because the offensive line couldn't block anybody. And so for me, I'm with you in the fact that I am long-term looking at receivers. I did actually put out trades for Mike Evans because I'm actually on the Mike Evans hype. And the reason why I'm on the Mike Evans hype is I agree with you. Godwin and Evans, their roles have been etched in stone since they become NFL receivers. Like, you know exactly who they are. And this was everything along those exact same lines. Godwin, six targets, 5 for 83, all basically across the middle of the field, right? Has a hard time getting in the end zone because he's just not that type of receiver. Mike Evans, not as many targets, not very much middle of the field stuff, but what did he get? He got over the top passes, slant passes heading into the end zone, etc. So Mike Evans is going to be the guy that if they're going to score passing touchdowns, more than likely, I'm going to bet my money every week that Mike Evans is going to be the touchdown scorer, especially if they continue to run the ball very ineffectively. So for me, I am buying low, not low. I mean, depending on how people feel about Godwin and Evans, they're not sexy names anymore. You can find sexier receivers that people can maybe gravitate towards based on the name. So if you can buy low for those guys, I'm with you. I am all in on the Bucs receivers because they have to throw the football somewhere. Moving right along, the Titans and the Saints played a weird game where the Titans kicked 5 field goals. I mean, it's not weird when you're the Tennessee Titans. I guess that seems like a lot more of the norm for them. But the Saints win this ugly close game, 16-15 at home. Tennessee covers the 3-point spread, under 41.5. A lot of unders all week. But Shishot, Titans, Saints, what did you see?
For the first time in my life, I saw Derrick Henry be used as a plebe, as a dweeb, and as a sneeb, if that's even a word. He just looked like a fullback. He looked like a fullback out there. They didn't care. Something changed. And I know Strova's going to talk a little bit about Tyjae Spears, but it looks like they're kind of believing in a younger, faster back now. So I think this is a good time. Week 1, I know it's jumping early. They could just be seeing what they had to offer because it was already a tough Saints defense. Maybe they didn't want to wear out Henry too quick. Maybe they learned their lesson. I don't know. Some people may say it's not time to panic, but as the sneaky fantasy player I am, it's time to get rid of Henry because his name still holds value. It's not like he did bad. It's not like he did bad. He had 12.9 fantasy points. Madison had 11 point something, and I'm over here raving at him, and I'm over here. Derrick Henry's only getting 12.9, and I'm talking about get rid of him. But it's about where you draft him, and it's about what you can get for him. You can trade a Derrick Henry to a Titans fan who saw Jahmyr Gibbs split carries with freaking Montgomery, right? If you're not invested in the fantasy football world, you can convince people that the Bengals suck, and you can convince people that Jahmyr Gibbs isn't going to be all that. So this is the time to target those people, man. There's no friends in fantasy football. You either win a championship or you don't make it to the playoffs. And I would rather make it to the playoffs than have a person that you barely even talk to be happy at you or whatever. I don't give a shit. You want to be mad at me, bro, but be mad at me from the bottom of the depth chart while I'm in the playoffs. So no friendship here. Go get them. Go get your points. Go find these players that are just sitting there waiting to be had, like Jahmyr Gibbs. And there's just the value is like in its lowest point it's ever going to be. And if you have a player like Derrick Henry who holds such a big place in people's brains, take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect segue. I mean, and first of all, I love you guys, but I love fantasy football, and I got to get that win. So I'm gonna do whatever it can. Then if that means trading you Derrick Henry and screwing you over, yeah, I'll do that.
At the end of the day, the person that gets traded to has to hit the accept button, right? So there's no such thing as screw. Like
that's what I was gonna say.
Accept, there's no such thing. There's no.
Not on me.
Send me the
it's not on
trades.
Me.
I hit the accept button. It's on me. So
exactly.
Exactly. For sure. So, I mean, let's talk about the backup, like Tyjae Spears, right? So, 34 routes run to 30 of Derrick Henry, 20 routes run to 10 for Derrick Henry. He saw more snaps. If the Titans are losing, then he's going to be in the field more often than Derrick Henry is. There's a new guy, a running back that you need to look out for. If Derrick Henry's not the guy, then Tyjae Spears is certainly a guy you need to go pick up. And so, go pick up Tyjae Spears is my thing.
And I want to add that they weren't even really losing. The score was 15-16, right? It was a close game the whole time. And Derrick Henry was second fiddle as far as, being on the field goes. So it's really, really intriguing to watch this scenario.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think if there's one guy that, week 1, week 17, week 10, like playoff game, random game, Like if there's one guy that's been constant, it's Derrick Henry, right? And what's constant about Derrick Henry is his touches. Like he gets the football. First down, he gets the football. Second down, sometimes third and long. They give him the football and he gets better as the game goes on. That's been his MO. You know, fourth quarters is usually when he makes his bread and butter with like going from a decent fantasy day to a next level fantasy day. And now he doesn't even get that same amount of touches to rev up that engine to continue to build on those carries, right? If Tajay Spears is taking over half of his snaps, then they automatically assume, or they know that Derrick Henry has less tread on his tires. I mean, the whole offense is absolutely in shambles. Last thing I'll touch on about Titans Saints on the Saints side, big proponent and component and believer in Michael Thomas resurgence, big believer in Chris Olave taking the next step as the elite number one on that team. What is hindering me a little bit about this Michael Thomas thing is this Rashid Shaheed thing. And I think we need to talk about it a little bit more because last year, Rashid Shaheed, big deep threat, right? That's all he was. He wasn't doing much, but just taking the top off defenses, and he was flashing here and there. He played a lot more this game than he typically does last year. And he ran a lot more routes than he typically does. He actually saw, I think, one more target than Michael Thomas. So I think he's got that like next level explosive over the top speed that is such a compliment to like an amazing route runner and as fluid as a guy as Chris Olave, that my fear is naturally based on age and who he is. Like Michael Thomas could be the third guy getting targets on this offense that's already featured by Derek Carr. That we already were hesitant to be like, how much can he support a number one receiver, let alone a number three receiver now, arguably. So that's my only fear. I came into this super like, I want Michael Thomas in all my leagues, but Shaheed did flash last year. And I just like, I almost like him as a talent, and I think the Saints probably will see that more and have to use him because he's so fast and electric. He gets open probably a lot quicker than Michael Thomas does. So that's my only reservation on the whole wide receiver scenario there. Let's take it to the Pittsburgh Steelers where they were hosting the 49ers, an ugly game. 49ers win 30-7. They were only favored by 1 point. You look back on that and what a weird ass line, Vegas. Under 41.5 points. Shove it. Your Steelers. Kick us off.
Man, that was bad for the Steelers. I mean, so much hype, but we all saw the game, and no one looked good.
No, we didn't.
But you didn't see the game? Oh yeah, the Vikings game was going on, but I watched the game and I was very, very upset. But I'll digress. Okay, so biggest thing for me, Deontay Johnson got hurt, right? So you automatically think like next guy in line, George Pickens, is gonna be the guy that steps forward. I'm a little bit reserved on that. I'm not confident that offense has shown anything to be. Hey, George Pickens needs to be a must start every week. I don't know, because when Deontay Johnson didn't play, the guy that came up was Calvin Austin. They also got Allen Robinson on the team. Now, I may be very wrong. Well, I mean, he's there. He's their wide receiver 3, right? Yeah. So, with that being said, I think I need one more game to see George Pickens against the Cleveland Browns. The Browns defense looked pretty stellar against the Bengals.
They're good, man.
They look good. Their defensive line is killer. So I think that for me, it's not must start George Pickens. I think it's monitor. And take a look at Calvin Austin. He's just monitor, check, see how he's doing in the next couple of weeks while Deontay Johnson's out, because he might be the guy that steps up and takes Deontay Johnson's role.
Yeah, Allen Robinson, real quick before show, Allen Robinson played the same amount of snaps as Pickens, 56, ran a route on 95.8% of plays, and 83.3% of those were from the slot. So big guy interior Allen Robinson. That's weird. Anyway, Shasho, what do you got?
Yeah, abort mission, bro. Abort mission on this offense, because Deontay Johnson, believe it or not, I know people don't talk about him that much. He's still the best player on this offense. And he's been the focal point of this offense for 3-4 years for a reason, because he's just open all the time. His hands are a little bit of concern at times, but kind of improved on that. Then he decided to not get in the end zone. So a lot of things that he just doesn't let you just love him. He just makes you like him. And for that reason, he dropped in a lot of draft picks. But in no shape or form am I saying, as much as I love Pickens, I only love him for one singular reason, and that's the deep threat ability. And you need a quarterback to place the ball there. You can't just be a great receiver and the ball be thrown out of bounds and then you try to catch it, but hey, my feet are out of bounds. Things have to connect, and things are not connecting right now. And now your best opening receiver is gone. And who are we dealing with here? We're dealing with Miles Boykin, Gunnar Olszewski, just Allen Robinson resurgence. Like, bro, abort mission. You're going to be stacking the box against Najee Harris. You thought this conversation was about the wide receiver. This is actually about Najee Harris. Everybody's going to get left open on this receiving core. Maybe players like Austin are going to find ways to get open. But we've seen gadget players like this come. We've seen gadget players like this go. Maybe we'll have a difference here, but in my opinion, it's just going to be, 6 targets on a good day for Austin, with 3 of them being caught for 27 yards. Maybe one gets broken free for 76, but you won't see that for another 8 weeks. So I'm hoping I'm wrong, but that's just how these receivers are. And that means not enough, you don't need to play quarter defense. You don't have to play dime defense. Just play nickel, play 4-3-3-4, and just stack the box. That's literally what everybody's going to do when they play the Steelers. Pressure Pickens, force erratic throws, and stop the run. And that's how you beat the Steelers. And 49ers just laid it out for the rest of the league to see.
Yeah, flipping it over to the 49ers side on offense, Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver 1, probably going to be their wide receiver 1. I mean, in targets, receiving yards, catches, all that, he was their wide receiver 1 last year as well. The whole Deebo Samuel allure is just the fact that he's a Swiss Army knife, but the true wide receiver 1 is in fact by Brandon Ayuk. Let's not take away from the fact that Brock Purdy now is 6-0 as a starter in that offense. Every single game he's thrown 2 touchdown passes. Brandon Ayuk seems like an absolute lock for at least one of those, right? It's the same, look at the Jimmy G was put into that offense, right? What was he doing? He always looks for the first 3-step drop, who's going to get open quickly, because that's going to be his first read. Typically that's Ayuk because he runs better routes. Similarly to what Jimmy G did with the Raiders before Jacoby Myers got concussed. If you're doing a 3-step drop, you're trusting Jacoby Myers as your number 2 receiver, not against PS2 to get open. That's why Jacoby Myers was force-fed as opposed to Adams. And I think based on the way this offense is run, that's embedded in Jimmy G's brain. Similar now, Brock Purdy's at the helm. And I think the guy that's going to get open more frequently, again, as shown last year and this year, is Brandon Ayuk. With that stat line in week 1, good luck trying to trade for him, but you have to hope that there's a quick Deebo Samuel big bump game, or CMC takes over one game and Ayuk just has a pedestrian game. But I would absolutely target Brandon Ayuk simply because Brock Purdy in that offense, sorry to say, guys, he's the real deal. He is the real deal, Mr. Irrelevant. I mean, some of the throws he makes, the decision making, it's that offense. Jimmy G wins in that offense, but Jimmy G just won his game with the Raiders. So I guess all Jimmy G does is win if he took that away from there as well. But to me, Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver 1, I think this is a top 10 potential year for Brandon Ayuk as an overall receiver. Taking it to the next game on the board, Commanders and Cardinals. Commanders won the game 20-16, an ugly game. Arizona almost won this game. They almost basically forfeited their number 1 pick in the first week by winning this game, but luckily they did not. They came back down to earth. For me, I can kick us off here because it's not like this game to me personally was that exciting. But I will say Hollywood Brown. We talked about it. Hollywood Brown, the only receiver there. Like, they have to target him. There's no world where he doesn't see targets. That's kind of the name of his game. Similar to Deontay, gets open, runs great routes. Suspect hands, which he fixed. But you have Rondale Moore. I think for me, the biggest problem with Hollywood Brown after 1 week is they continue to throw Josh Dobbs out there. And I think when you're starting Josh Dobbs and then Zach Ertz becomes your most targeted player, like, if that's not as visible of, we don't care about winning the football game, we're just going to tank, as I've ever seen. Like, you drafted a 2nd-round stud tight end that you continue to refuse to play over Ertz for whatever reason. I know Ertz is great. He's as reliable as been in the NFL for, a decade almost, but again, you're starting Josh Dobbs as a journeyman. Your leading target getter is Zach Ertz. James Conner continues to run ineffectively. So for me, Hollywood Brown is in an offense where, like, I just don't even think there's output to be had, because I don't know how much they're going to try week in and week out. It's a weird just vibe to me with the Arizona Cardinals. I am bearish on Hollywood Brown. I'm just bearish on that team as a whole, obviously rightfully so. But in a world where I felt like you could still throw in Hollywood Brown in offenses just based on targets, I no longer feel that way. Shote, what was your biggest takeaway here?
My biggest takeaway is the lack of taking away from this game. Like, there's players that are really valuable in this game that just didn't shine this game. And again, boom, buy low options. Terry McLaurin, I'm kind of tired of. We hyped him up for so many years, drafted him early so many years. Watch, nothing happened. Yeah, you can have a new quarterback, this and that. People find ways to be great with bad quarterbacks. We've seen it happen. Terry McLaurin's had this opportunity. He's surpassed 1,000 yards or whatever, like, not that many times. He gets close to like 9,800. But it's just, you never see that next step where you're like one of the best. You just can't say it. You can't say this is one of the best receivers in football. He gets there, and then he has this Allen Robinson type of situation. And now with the toe injury, I can't go all in. So the rest of the receivers are Byron Pringle, De'Ami Brown, Curtis Samuel, Mitchell Tinsley, and Jameson Crowder. And then you have Jahan Dotson, who's actually proven a lot of things in low sample size. So I'm going after that guy, especially when Sam Howell's projected to have a great fantasy year, throwing the ball, running the ball. It's just a dynamic quarterback that's just not a sexy pick, but he'll make plays. He's capable of making plays like Josh Allen can, just in a very poor man's attitude kind of way. But that's exactly what Jahan Dotson needs. He'll find ways to get open. This will be a solid wide receiver 3 starting about week 4, week 5. You'll see him probably get dropped again next week. They play Denver. I'm sure PS2 is going to be on them if for some reason, what's his name? Terry McLaurin's not a go or whatever happens, re-hurts his toe. He'll get covered. And I'm just sitting here just licking my chops because I want him to suck next week. That means he'll get dropped. People will freak out. I'll throw in some easy trades here and there, and I'll have him on my team. So go after him. Find Dotson. They're going to have to score. They're not one of the best teams. They're going to have to throw in a lot of these situations. They got to play the Cowboys twice. They got to play the Eagles twice. A lot of scoring there. Got to have him. Got to have him as a wide receiver 3.
Yeah. So you guys are a little bit bearish on that team. I am as well, but I am bullish on one guy, and that's James Conner. I think that you saw, 62 yards, 14 carries. Definitely on. He's the only running back that's going to be on the field. There's not going to be any sort of, some guy vulturing James Conner, right? Unless there's any injuries or anything like that, I'm still rolling with James Conner as a starter on my team. I am not shying away from the fact that, maybe he is touchdown dependent. He's not going to get you like 100 yards. You're really going to need that to be successful week in, week out. But that is a risk that I am willing to take. And if you have solid receivers and you've got James Conner as an RB2, I think you're going to be just fine. Keep rolling with James Conner is what I would say.
Yeah, I agree with you. RB2, that's totally fine. He's got a solid floor because, like you said, he's going to touch the football as the running back position, and most other people are not on the team. It's not going to be efficient. My fear is, again, in the past, he was touchdown dependent, but like, are they going to get to the red zone like this? I know they scored 16 points against the Commanders, but again, when they had a chance to win the football game, it almost like they flipped that switch and they're like, wait, guys, we're not supposed to actually win this game because we're trying to tank because we're starting Josh Dobbs, who basically, is a journeyman quarterback that no other team who is actually trying to compete would be starting. So that it's just the fear of at some point, this team just goes into oblivion and they even are like, you know what? There's no reason to play James Conner anymore. Let's just play this random rookie that we don't know. So I agree with you. Right now, the volume is Conner's best friend. My biggest thing here, obviously we talked about it. Hollywood Brown was my biggest thing. So let's not talk about it anymore. Let's go to Baltimore where the Ravens played the Texans. Ravens won an ugly game, 25-9, covered the 9.5 point spread under 43.5. Shove it. What was your biggest takeaway?
Dude, Zay Flowers, man, looking like the true receiver that from that rookie class that's going to stand out among all the other ones. 10 targets. It was like Zay Flowers all over the field. And I think that's just going to continue on. If you had him on your bench, you got to definitely consider putting him as a starter week in, week out.
The Texans defense, man, they allowed 25 points and they allowed a good amount of yards, 265, not that crazy. A lot of weird shit happened this game for the points to be had because of a lot of turnovers that were caused by them. They had one of the most pressure rates in the league this year. Towards the end of the year last year, they barely allowed any. I think almost all the touchdowns were had either on the ground and they didn't allow barely any receiving touchdowns because people just ran on them. And I was thinking more because they just suck, so you can just run on them. But their pass defense is really good. Their pass defense is actually really good. They're doing a great job of holding on to the receivers in whatever way they can, keeping them tight. I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to do that because they do face a couple of good teams. But you got to remember, they play teams like Colts, Jaguars. You have Ridley, but nobody's afraid of the Jaguars just yet. They play Pittsburgh. They play Atlanta, New Orleans, Carolina. Just Arizona, Jacksonville again, Denver, Jets. Nothing is like, oh my God, I'm going to get killed this week. So Texans defense, keep an eye out, man. When you have a high pressure rate and you're playing against a lot of not great receivers, you force turnovers, you get sacks. And that's what you need in fantasy football, especially in a league where yards don't matter. So keep an eye out. Texans defense is going to surprise a lot of people this year.
Yeah. Spot on with both of those. I love Zay Flowers. If you followed us for quite some time and you looked at our TikTok rankings for players pre-draft, Zay Flowers was my favorite rookie receiver coming in this year. 10 targets, Shove It, you said, compared to 3 for OBJ, compared to 3 for Rashad Bateman. So not only did you double, not only did you triple, you actually more than tripled their targets. No Andrews. Obviously, that is something that is an asterisk there. But let's talk about the Texans offense. They suck. But you know who produces in a disgusting offense in garbage time? Nico Collins. That's who. Nico Collins has 11 targets, 6 catches, 80 yards. I just had one of the most disgusting thoughts in my brain that, you know, I can possibly remember from a fantasy football perspective. It might just be this overreaction after week 1, but I have Garrett Wilson as my wide receiver 1 in my other league. I have a more confident mindset starting Nico Collins week in and week out moving forward than I do Garrett Wilson. Am I absolutely crazy to think that?
No, absolutely not. There's a world where that is, and that's this world that we're living in it.
We're here.
It's possible. Nico Collins has had experience. We've seen him kind of grow, and now he's the top dog. When you get 11 targets and you're a pretty good receiver and you're going to be behind most of the games and there's nobody else to compete with the targets, and you have a rookie quarterback that just solidifies more throwing in the fourth quarter, what more do you want? The Jets have a legit defense. They're not going to need to force feed nobody. You know, there will be times where Garrett Wilson's awesome play will make him so great, but Nico Collins doesn't have to do that. He's not as skilled as Garrett Wilson is, but this is fantasy. Volume is key, and we're going to see 10 targets probably every single game.
Man, it's just, I know I drafted Garrett Wilson pretty early, but, you know, ESPN's Mike Clay taking him 7th overall in the first round. Like, that's a guy that I very, very much feel for after that Rodgers injury. But let's take it to the next game on the board. We have the Packers and the Bears. Packers win this game in Chicago 38-20, absolute annihilation. They were 1.5-point dogs heading into this game, huh? Weird to think about that. Over 41 destroys. Shisho, Packers, Bears. Does Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre have a third quarterback that's going to be a future Hall of Famer there?
I'm not jumping the gun until he plays somebody that's not named the Bears. All right, let's start with that. The Bears defense was terrible last year. The Bears defense is still bad. If you look at the players on this defense, I bet you can't name anybody. Can you guys name anybody?
Yeah, I mean, they signed 2 amazing players, but the problem is they signed 2 amazing players that play non-premium. They both play off-ball linebacker. Like, you paid major money.
Edwards.
Yeah, Tremaine Edmonds and Terrell Edwards or TJ Edwards. Yeah, so great players, but they're off-ball linebackers.
Yeah, TJ Edwards is actually he's my 3rd linebacker in my IDP league, and he's guaranteed 10 points a game. But yeah, you know, there's players. There's Eddie Jackson, who's kind of in this weird limbo. And then I remember sending you guys a text week 1 last year saying, look at Jaquan Brisker. This guy's going to be something special. I don't know if you guys remember, but if you search it on our text, we'll find it. But this guy is legit, all right? Too bad he plays safety, so he's not on ball.
Another non-premium position.
So there's just no pressure, man. They can't generate pressure. They're like in the bottom 3 or bottom 4 in generating pressure. That's all you need to know. You can have stacked cornerbacks, but if you can't generate pressure, an NFL quarterback is going to find somebody open. And that's what happened this game. They just couldn't do anything. And these no-name receivers start just making plays, and defenses start, you know, and then you have Justin Fields on the other end, who's erratic in his own way. Just run the ball or throw crazy passes, and that causes turnovers. So it's a situation where people benefited from certain things. This is one of those games you just kind of crumple up and you go like this, because you start focusing on this game and making your decisions of any player because of this game, maybe not Aaron Jones. Any other player, you start making decisions, you're going to regret it, man. Nothing is going to go this way. Be careful. This is early. I know we're being a lot bullish as you people like to say these things, but I'm just not sold. I'm not sold on anything in this game. I want a rematch of all of this next week with other players, and we'll make more sample size given decisions.
You finance people using
you people with your bullish and bears.
Wow. Okay, so you said list no one and don't overreact on anyone. Well, I am overreacting, and I think that this is going to be important because Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Okay, Aaron Rodgers. If you have Aaron Rodgers as your only quarterback, you've got Kirk Cousins, you got Sam Howell, and then you got this guy Jordan Love, who got 3 touchdowns, can run the ball in a Packers offense who has some good, Reed, Dobbs, Watson when he comes back, Luke Musgrave. I mean, there is a potential for this guy to be a decent enough quarterback for you to start on a week in, week out basis. So that's my point here. I think that Jordan Love could, if you are looking for a quarterback, Aaron Rodgers just got hurt, then going and getting Jordan Love, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of things to not overreact to. I think for me, again, as the person that's most bearish on Justin Fields. I wish he would have just made some more throws that would give me some hope that he's taken the next step. Didn't see much of that. I mean, we came into this season with the Packers defense not expected to do well, but that Bears offensive line is so bad that they made that Packers defense actually look really good. So there's fear that the Bears are literally the same football team as last year, and they got DJ Moore, but great. He has no offensive line to protect, so DJ Moore doesn't have time to get open. So you're just going to see a lot more of the same stuff. So that is my biggest fear. My takeaway from this football game, though, you guys know I love this guy. I'm not overreacting personally because I don't know that he's going to take the starting job or anything. He played a lot of garbage time, but they're the Bears. They're probably going to be in a lot of garbage time because they suck. Roschon Johnson, running back for the Chicago Bears, 4th-round draft pick from Texas. Khalil Herbert's the guy. Deontay Foreman is there. Roschon Johnson had 7 targets. He's a 4th-round rookie playing in his first game as 3rd running back, and he had 7 targets. Product of Justin Fields, only throwing 3 of his 37 passes beyond 10 yards. That matters for the running back who is going to catch the dump-off passes. So that is massive to me. Tied for the team in targets as a 3rd-string running back behind DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, or tied with DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. He played when they were down big, but again, like I mentioned, this is the Bears. This is what we probably expect most of their games to go like. They're going to be losing a lot. And I still think he has much more upside every time you get a rookie running back. Like running backs, we talked about it. They're plug and play. If you don't have a cream of the crop guy, chances are he loses his job just because the rookie running back costs less. He has more upside. So there's much more that he can bring to the table. Khalil Herbert's been in the offense. I like him. I think he's a good running back. But to me, if you have an extra bench spot, if you're playing in a league that has 6 bench spots and you need a season-long stash that could pay dividends down the road, to me, it is Roschon Johnson of the Chicago Bears. Taking it to Denver, where the Broncos hosted the Vegas Raiders. The Vegas Raiders win 17-16, cover the 3-point dog spread under 43 cashes. Shovit, Raiders, Broncos. Broncos still look disgusting. What did you see?
Yeah, Myers went off, man. It seemed like all the plays where you thought Davante Adams was gonna be there, it was just Jakobi Meyers. And first of all, Jakobi Meyers is like he looks huge, dude. I did not know Jakobi Meyers was
It looks like Davante Adams. If he wore Davante Adams' number, I would have been convinced that was Davante Adams.
Right. But I think that you need to kind of temper your expectations with Jakobi Meyers. I think going forward, I think the Garoppolo with Davante Adams connection is going to be a lot more. And he's also dealing with a concussion. So Hunter Renfrow may be the guy next week. So I'm not convinced that Myers is a guy that, although, he played out stellar last week, I don't think you're going to have a repeat of that every week in, week out.
As an Adams owner, I certainly hope not. Shishot?
Jimmy Garoppolo. What more do you want me to say? This man doesn't throw the ball deep. Adams is used as a deep threat. That's where he excels. That's where you get your fantasy points. You don't get the Cooper Kupp, 15 targets, 13 catches. You get the 8 catches on a good day, 12 targets and 2 touchdowns. That's what he does. That's what Adams is known for, is those touchdowns. And I am a little terrified. I'm not going to lie, man. I'm a little worried. As an Adams owner myself in my other league, I'm looking at things. I'm looking at places I could ship him. I'm worried. Garoppolo has never ever been a gunslinger. He is a safe. Let me check this down, or look at the 15 yards is the farthest his vision goes on the field for whatever reason. I hope that changes. I hope things happen when you have a tool like Adams around for my fantasy team's sake. But I was afraid of this. Even when we did our mock draft, I explained this exact same reasoning. I was like, Myers is probably a good player to have because it's Garoppolo. Look at history. Look at what he likes to do. He fits that role perfectly. He is the Brandon Ayuk in the situation. So I do see a world where things happen, and mainly because the Raiders, man, they're going to be in shootout with all these other teams in their division. That's just how it goes with the Chargers, the Raiders, and Patrick Mahomes is around. It's just they're going to have to throw the ball, and Davante Adams is going to do it great. But that doesn't mean that there's no room for anywhere else to go on the field. And I think Myers will be able to get his, mainly because it's those two. And there's really nobody else that you can kind of be so sure on. I like Myers. I've always liked Myers. He's just been in weird offenses. So I think it's time for him to shine. This injury, I don't know what that's going to do. So I'm not going in there and wasting my first waiver pick on a player like Myers if he's available. You drafted players for a reason. At this point in the season, you want to get game breakers, and I don't think Myers is a game breaker. I think he's just a safety net. If you need 8 points one day and you want to shoot for the moon, you could go with Tutu Atwell or one of these rookies flying around, or you can go with Myers. And I think knowing that Garoppolo's the quarterback, he's one of those safe picks that you can get 6 points on a given day.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think obviously, long term, I'm not worried about Adams as much, just because again, Adams Adams runs amazing routes. So I have no fear that if they put Adams where Jakobi Meyers was all last game and he looked that way, he would get open probably much more than Jakobi Meyers would. The talent level is insane. So I hope, like you said, that they realize that, hey, Meyers is nice, but he's no Davante Adams. So hopefully they can utilize Adams the way he deserves to get utilized. Definitely a cause for concern. Flip side, I think if you drafted Javonte Williams, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. Owner should be happy with how much he played and how he looked, quite frankly. Snap count 50 to 50, exactly what Samaje Perine. So, it's not like he's getting all of the workload, but that wasn't the expectation. They signed Perine with the hope that, while Javonte was recovering, Perine could be the guy, but it's week 1 and they already split the touches. Some Javonte Williams looked good. 13 carries, 52 yards, four yards a carry, and he also saw 6 targets. Granted, it was 4 catches for 5 yards, but Russell Wilson, if he can't find those guys to deep bomb, like who's it going to be? Sutton, Mims? Nobody stepped up. He's going to dump the ball off. He's going to find that third string tight end. So I think Javonte, again, where you drafted him, how much he fell because of the injury, similar to Breece Hall. Maybe Breece Hall's on the next echelon there. I thought Javonte looked nice, and I think there's a lot to like if you drafted Javonte Williams and took that risk on. All right. So next game on the board, we have the Eagles traveling to New England to take on the Patriots. Ugly game. I mean, Eagles win this football game 25-20, but that offense never seemed to be in sync. They still covered the 3.5 point spread over 44 cashes. Shovit, to me, what was your biggest takeaway from this football game fantasy wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the script benefited the tight end Hunter Henry for the Patriots, and he 58 passing plays, also found himself in the end zone. I think that you're going to see some regression for that. I don't think that's going to be how it is every week. So if if you go out and get Hunter Henry, just know you're going to get a touchdown dependent guy. There was, I think last season where he had like 4 or 5 touchdowns back to back to back, and it's take what you can get. It's going to be touchdown dependent. If you need a tight end, you go out and get him, but know that that's what the play is here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Hunter Henry has been a nice tight end throughout his career. He seems to find the end zone. This offense is weird where Jakobi Meyers was the guy. He's gone. Kendrick Bourne seemed to step up this week, but it's like the receivers don't show that consistency. Juju with the knee. I think the one consistent person can be Hunter Henry, but like you said, it's not going to be because of the volume, right? So you are going to have to bank on the fact that he gets in the end zone. But with the shit show that the tight end position was week 1, like if you are going to be tight end dependent or touchdown dependent tight end only, like I don't hate that if your roster is constructed in a way where you have a pretty solid, consistent roster, because even the best guys did really poorly for the tight end position. I know it's 1 week. I know we don't want to overreact, but let's talk about one of those guys because he was on my team. Dallas Goedert for the Eagles, 1 target, 0 catches, played 61 of the 66 total offensive snaps, but 31 of those were passing downs, 21 of those he was run blocking, and 2 of those he was pass blocking. So over almost half of the snaps he was actually run blocking, which is a cause for concern. 87.5% of routes run. It is baffling. I mean, I'm not so concerned that you automatically don't start him. He's one of the top best tight ends in the NFL, so he is still on your roster, but it is a very unfortunate situation that he faced in week 1 where, there was no rhyme or reason why he absolutely laid that goose egg.
Yeah. Should we talk about Schultz's points just in case? I mean, it's about Kendrick Bourne, Mr. 2 touchdowns, 6 receptions, 64 yards.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I just don't know where he was going with it because the notes say he should be a wide receiver 1. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he's more of a flash guy. It's just an offense that just doesn't support a wide receiver 1. So I don't think anybody can be the wide receiver 1 because that's not how their offense is run. They signed Ezekiel Elliott. They probably want to run the football with both Stevenson and Elliott more and put the ball in Mac Jones's hands less. So that's my only fear ever with a receiver on the Patriots when you have Mac Jones as your quarterback.
Yeah, fair.
Taking it to the next game, the Chargers hosted the Dolphins, maybe the best game of the week, 36-34. Dolphins win a shootout, cover the 3-point dog spread, win the game outright, over 50 cashes. I mean, so much fantasy promise in this football game. I don't think I reaped a single bit of benefit because I don't have any players on either of these teams, so it was very unfortunate for me. But Shovit, what was your biggest takeaway here?
Dude, my biggest takeaway is if you are a Austin Ekeler owner, you better have Joshua Kelly as your backup handcuff. And Ekeler is dealing with an injury as well. So I think that given that his stats, I mean, it was amazing. Like 95 yards, got into the end zone, and it's what he 91 yards, and it's what he did. 16 carries. First of all, is already a potential like a starting running back amount of carries, and 5.7 yards per carry. So if you have Ekeler, I sure hope you went and got Joshua Kelly, and if you did, Certainly if Eckler's not playing, he's a definite start.
Yeah, it seems like with Kellen Moore there, everybody talked about, oh, open up the offense, pass the ball more. And they ran the ball 32 times between Eckler and Kelly. They both ran it 16 times, both incredibly efficiently. 117 yards for Eckler and a touchdown, 91 for Kelly and a touchdown, right? You have to monitor the Eckler injury because if Eckler's out, Joshua Kelly's an RB1 on your team. You immediately start him every single week with that offense and how much they use their running back. So without a doubt, you better have stashed him. But I want to talk about Tyreek Hill. I mean, how can you not talk about Tyreek Hill? This was an insane performance. 11 catches, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. The wide receiver one, the best fantasy football player this week. Here's the thing with Tyreek Hill. These are games that we did see last year. These are games that we saw last year from Tua when they were playing really, really bad defenses. And then you have adjustments. So it'll all be interesting to see how much consistency a player like Tyreek Hill can maintain. You love the 45 points, but you don't want to see that, coincide with like a 7-pointer, right? I think if Hill can still get 9+ points, that should be his floor. Like 10 points, honestly, should be his floor, but you don't want to see single digits from a guy that has this much massive upside that can win you weeks. And that is what we saw a little bit of back and forth last year, simply because 1, Tua couldn't stay healthy. 2, when they were playing tougher defenses, the passing was not as open as it typically is. And 3, you have another guy across from Tyreek Hill in Jalen Waddle that every so often you have games where Jalen Waddle goes off. And so just, the law of averages mean that there will be games that Waddle goes off, that Hill doesn't necessarily have these type of stats. You just hope he can stay consistent. But man, oh man, is he one of the most exciting football players I've ever seen. If you have him as your on your fantasy team, like you are just so giddy every week when you turn on any Dolphins games. And I could not be more jealous and envious because I don't have him in either of my league. Rams, Seahawks, one of the most surprising victories. The Rams win this on the road 30-13 in Seattle, cover the 4.5-point dog spread, under 44 cashes. Shove it. What did you see in this football game?
Man, so Cam Akers, man, I don't know what the Rams, why they hate Cam Akers, but they hate him. Kyren Williams led the Los Angeles backfield. He was just, in any sort of stat of being utilized in terms of utilization, passing down back, early down back. I mean, it was all Kyren Williams, even though Cam Akers started the game. So I think that moving forward, Kyren Williams is would have been a waiver ad yesterday, and he is an intriguing start. I don't know if you can go in and say like I'm ready to start him, but certainly a guy that's on your bench, you're going to see if that utilization increases more than Cam Akers so that you can start him on your team.
Yeah, 53-28 snaps favored Kyren Williams, 29-3 snaps in passing down situations. So it is all Kyren Williams when they're passing. Rushing situations, Akers 20. The stat lines for these running backs this game is so weird. Cam Akers 22 carries for 29 rushing yards. Like the dude didn't average one, like he averaged a little over 1 yard a carry. That was absolutely atrocious. And so I'm not going to lie. I have Cam Akers. I picked up Kyren Williams, so I have them both, but I still see a world where it is going to eventually be Cam Akers' backfield. I personally think that he is the better running back. I think Kyren Williams is the better pass catcher for sure. But like you said, it's a weird love-hate relationship that they seem to have with Akers. Like, how do you only see the field for, 35% of the game, but you have 22 carries? Like, it's just the numbers don't necessarily add up for me. So it is a little weird. It's almost like the defense should know if Cam Akers is on the field, chances are he's carrying the football. So the numbers are a little strange. I know it's a 1-week outlier. I would be remiss to not real quickly talk about Puka. 15 targets in his first career game. Looked like Cooper Kupp, played the Cooper Kupp role, played it beautifully. Number 1 waiver wire ad. If Cooper Kupp doesn't come back, he's at least out for 4 weeks. So you have Puka for 4 weeks. And if he plays the Cooper Kupp role, I don't care the defense. I don't care the matchups. Like, I think you have to start him just based on the fact that he is the first look and read in almost every passing situation. Even if Cooper Kupp comes back, I could see a world where Puka is talented enough to be a wide receiver too. I just don't know how much they'll throw the football, but amazing, intriguing, first game of his career, and the future looks bright for Puka. Sunday Night Football, Giants Cowboys, one of the most disgusting football games this week. 40-0. The Cowboys on the road annihilate the Giants, who look like they were, the Pee Wee Giants and not the New York Giants. Dallas covers the 3-point spread, under 44.5 cashes. There's really, to me, not much fantasy value to talk about on the Giants side. But if you have somebody on the Giants side, otherwise, is it somebody on the Cowboys show? But who are you talking about?
Yeah, so this is the way I'm looking at this game is that, first of all, if you made it through Sunday Night Football and you watched the whole game without falling asleep, like, kudos to you after all of week 1. And second of all, this Cowboys offense, I'm looking at this offense because the Jets defense just was available to me in my fantasy team in the free agency, and the
Wow.
Jets play the Cowboys next week. So I'm looking at this team, and I'm looking at the Cowboys defense, and should I start Jets defense? And so I'm thinking like that defense is just the Cowboys defense is just so good that they're going to have opportunities for Dak Prescott to do well, to have more time of possession that I think is not going to bode well for the Jets in a 4-quarter game. I know we saw it with the Bills last week, but will they be able to do that every single week? I don't think so. And so I'm staying away from the Jets defense because I think Cowboys as a whole look really good, both on the offense and defense side.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think personally the Jets are for real. If there is a team that, on offense anyways, I have hesitancy towards, it's Dak and the Cowboys, because their defense pretty much won this football game. I think the reason why you could be more reluctant to start the Jets defense this week is the Cowboys defense against Zach Wilson could create so many short fields that even if the Jets don't allow very many yards, if they're taking the defense on from the red zone every time they get on the field, it's just a very disadvantageous spot to be in. So I wrote Cowboys defense, man, I don't care the matchup. You absolutely start this defense. They are too talented. The pass rush is insane. And now they added Stephon Gilmore, who is a former all-pro cornerback, as their number 2 cornerback, who had the highest PFF coverage grade of the week for any cornerback, I believe, and second in this entire game next to their defensive lineman, Dorrance Armstrong. So this guy is 32 years old. So I think their defense is for real. They have a pass rush. They have cornerbacks. There's really no weakness there to where I don't care who they're playing. Eagles, start them. Mahomes, Chiefs, start them. Bengals, start them. 49ers, start them. Cowboys to defense, to me, must start. Last thing, Tony Pollard. Were you surprised? Tony Pollard is the real deal. They have no backup. This guy, doesn't matter that Zeke's not there. He's still an efficient runner. He was insane. If you drafted him, congrats to you. Let's end the show of it. Monday Night Football, another weird, disgusting game. Unfortunate circumstances for the Jets fans and Aaron Rodgers. They travel, or actually they're at home for their home opener, first game of the season against Buffalo. Monday Night Football, they win the game 22-16 in overtime, but Aaron Rodgers goes down on the 4th play, tears his Achilles, out for the season. Where's your head at with this team in this game?
Yeah, dude. So, I mean, first of all, I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, anytime you go to overtime and then you have that punt return, it was just like, you're like, what? Zach Wilson is leading this team to a potential victory? Like, is this really happening? And Josh Allen is throwing like 2 or 3 picks all to the same guy? Like, what? It was fun. It was wild. Great defensive performance by the Jets defense. So going back to fantasy football and what I like, Dalton Kincaid. I think that you have to be patient with Dalton Kincaid, and I think that he's lining up what seems like as a wide receiver. He looks like a wide receiver. All the things that we've been talking about in preseason don't just go away just after 1 week. So there's a guy that dropped Dalton Kincaid, and he's in the waivers this week. So, that's because of the roster issue. So if he's available to you, you got to go pick him up. And if he's on your team, just be patient. I think you will reap the benefits if you just hold on to Dalton Kincaid for a little bit longer.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I love Kincaid. I think why I like Kincaid even more is outside of Stephon Diggs, they struggle to find a number 2 pass catcher this week. And I think the problem with Josh Allen, and I put it in our text group during the game, is he doesn't have the patience to take what the defense gives him. Why does he continue to throw the ball in double coverage? Because 3 straight plays, he has to dump it off to James Cook and Dalton Kincaid. And he's like, God, this is annoying. 3-4 yard gains. I don't have the patience for this. And you can see it in the way he plays football. Like, there's all of his turnovers, none of those throws deep should have been thrown deep. Like, none of those, right? Not one of those was in a situation where you're like, oh, Allen made a good play, a good throw, jump ball that his receiver didn't get. It was like double coverage, bad throw, just horrible. So for me, I think what I liked is that he has to eventually take what the defense gives him if the Bills offense is going to want to succeed, or they're going to have to figure out how to run the football effectively, right? One of those 2 things. Now, what was happening was he was dumping the football off. Stephon Diggs got his. He's a stud. Even with Sauce Gardner on him, he's an absolute stud. James Cook catching a lot of dump offs, taking what the defense gives him. I like Cook's upside. But the other guy, Dalton Kincaid, what do you have? 4 catches or something like that? But a lot of those were underneath, man. And so I do think that the more this season progresses, the more the defense has realize that Gabe Davis taking the top off the defense and scoring 50-yard touchdowns, we got to stop that because he's not an amazing receiver. It's just the fact that we're putting too much emphasis on Stephon Diggs and everything else that we leave this guy one-on-one. Now, if they start playing too high, you have to get James Cook involved. You have to get Dalton Kincaid involved. And Josh Allen has to have that patience. Is he going to have that patience? I don't know. Is he going to continue to throw these interceptions? Maybe, but he's going to learn to have that patience. And I agree with you, though. The person that is going to benefit a lot is Dalton Kincaid. My thing, I mean, it's hard not to talk about it. Garrett Wilson, your stock immediately drops. There's just, no rhyme or reason. This guy was destined to take off. This guy was destined to be a wide receiver 1, a top 3 finisher, arguably this year with Aaron Rodgers there. And now that he's gone, you have Zach Wilson. He had a good season last year. Garrett Wilson did. Zach Wilson did not. Garrett Wilson had a great season. He won Rookie of the Year, but you expected that to be the next step. And in 9 games with Zach Wilson as his quarterback, he had 0 touchdown catches. So granted, he already has 1 this week and this year with Zach Wilson. So that's already off.
Amazing catch.
Oh, dude, if that does not show you Garrett Wilson's talent level and just make you that much more frustrated at what could have been this season for him, I don't know what will, but it is incredibly frustrating. I think he goes from a absolute lock and loaded number 1 receiver to you're going to have to start him. He's probably going to be your wide receiver 2, maybe if you did the wide receiver back-to-back, or, at this point, I think his upside and his floor could be that of a flex or a wide receiver 3. So it is unfortunate based on where you drafted him that he probably is not going to hit or surpass his ADP. You just have to hope he gets somewhere in that ballpark. So that is incredibly frustrating as somebody who owns Garrett Wilson. That is it. My God, the rundown, just doing one big takeaway takes this long. Shove so much to talk about, so much we didn't even hit on. Any final words before we wrap up our first week of action? No, man. This was our first podcast of this week, and it's been fun. Many more to come, many more fantasy analysis. So yeah. I'm excited. I'm also excited for Thursday Night Football too, where we see Kirk on prime time. So going against the Philadelphia Eagles of what could have been in the NFL championship. So that should be fun. Yeah, no center. Defensive line for the Eagles is amazing. Our interior offensive line is in disarray already. It doesn't bode well for the Vikings. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. It is going to be an incredibly amazing season. We have a lot of content we are going to put out for you. We've already put out articles for our first week. I will be writing my Risers and Fallers article today, and that should post tomorrow on the Medium. We will put the link on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, where we are primarily social media. So give us a follow. If you're watching on YouTube, you can listen to us on any platform you get your podcast. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps spread the word. It means a lot to us. Again, I am Sweekar. Shashot had to dip out early because he is a doctor, does too many busy things. That is Shovit. We are the only playbook. Have a fantastic week 2. Do not overreact to week 1.